Hey guys, how you doing? Hopefully you're doing okay. I'm going to read through pretty much most of this article, I believe, or certainly the first half, which is going to tell us about R. Kelly being sentenced to 30 years in prison. We're going to read through that quite thoroughly, and it's going to mention some witness statements. We're also going to have a look at a second article here. There's a couple of extra little bits of info. There's also a couple of videos. I might need to refresh it, but there's a couple of videos from victims making a victim statement that we might watch. And then there's a third article, which again just gives an extra tiny little bit of information here and there. So we'll have a look at probably all three of those to keep things nice and thorough. But we're going to, for the first part, we're going to stick with this first article from NBC News. Disgraced R&B rhythm and blues superstar R. Kelly was sentenced Wednesday to 30 years in prison, months after he was convicted on all 9 counts in a high-profile sex trafficking case. So he's in the news now because of the sentencing, and he's been given a long sentence, 30 years in prison. Some people, some victims, would have liked to have seen that to be a longer sentence. To me, my opinion, for whatever it's worth, 30 years is a long time. 30 years is a long time. And I've seen so many sentences in America and the United Kingdom and other places where the sentences are pathetically low, that I would be happy with 30 years. I mean, it's a long amount of time, unarguably. Could it have been more? Yes. Should it have been more? I mean, arguably yes, but you know, it's could have been a lot worse. It could have been a lot lower. So I personally think 30 years in prison is a good sentence. United States District Judge Ann Donnelly handed down the sentence in Brooklyn, New York, after several of Kelly's victims angrily addressed him at the hearing. The judge minced no words as she threw the book at the once beloved performer. Here's a quote from the judge. You were a person who had great advantages, worldwide fame and celebrity, and untold money. You took advantage of their hopes and dreams, holding teenagers in your house trapped. You were at the top of your organization and you raped and beat them, separated them from their families, and forced them to do unspeakable things. During the course of this video, I'm going to go through quite a bit of detail, so I perhaps should mention a trigger warning at this point in time. But if you're not fully familiar with the case, or perhaps you've forgotten some of the details, it's pretty disgusting. It's fucking awful. So yeah, for sure, this guy deserves a 30-year sentence. Back to the article. Victims who addressed the court said that they had barely any will to live during their time under Kelly's control. Here's a quote from one of the victims. You degraded me, humiliated me, you broke my spirit. I wished I would die because of how you degraded me. That same victim recalled an incident when she was forced to perform oral sex on R. Kelly. After he had played basketball and he forced her to perform oral sex on him in a car full of friends, his friends. Do you remember that? The witness said. You couldn't care less. What you did left a permanent stain on my life. Here he is, an absolute scumbag. And he did have everything, you know, as the judge said. He had untold wealth, untold fame, the world's admiration. I mean, musically extremely talented, no argument. And he abused his position, for sure. The witness continued, you are an abuser, shameless, disgusting. I hope you go to jail for the rest of your life. I feel sorry for you. So we can actually move over to this video here, and we can play this article. We can play a short video of one of the witnesses speaking. So I'm going to play this, And then after, we can have a look at this other one where some R. Kelly fans are arguing with the victims because, as this article mentions, one of the witnesses says, "I know there are fans of R. Kelly who don't believe us." And yeah, that's seemingly the case. I've been on YouTube. I watch a lot of YouTube live streams, and I've come across some live streams of R. Kelly fans, stans. And yeah, they're like, I was shocked. There was a whole panel full, half a dozen people on panel on a live stream on YouTube, an active community, I don't know, 30, 50, 100 people in the chat, all supporting R. Kelly. They didn't believe the allegations made against him. So we're going to play this video to begin with of one of the witnesses speaking after R. Kelly was sentenced to 30 years in prison.
Today was a very special but hard day for us. I personally, this happened to me a long time ago. I was 17, I'm 45 today. I never thought that I would be here to see him be held accountable for the atrocious things that he did to children. I don't know what else to say except that I'm grateful. I'm grateful for today. And I'm grateful that Robert Sylvester Kelly is away and will stay away and will not be able to harm anyone else. Thank you.
My name is Jovante. I started this journey 30 years ago. I was 14 years old when I encountered Robert Sylvester Kelly. There wasn't a day in my life up until this moment that I actually believed that the judicial system would come through for Black and brown girls. I stand here very proud of my judicial system, very proud of my fellow survivors, and very pleased with the outcome. 30 years did he do this, and 30 years is what he got.
It is terrible. I'm not sure if I should mention this, but there has been mention of the victims being black and brown. And I normally, like, I don't want to say the word repulsed, but I think that's literally the correct word. I feel like in a rejection from that accusation. I'm not using the right words. I'm not articulating what I'm thinking very well at all. But normally I'm somewhat repulsed about this call to race. But I'm not so sure. I'm thinking, I believe the vast majority, if not all of the victims, were black or brown. That is who he targeted, I believe. I'm right in saying. So, maybe there is some aspect there, but that's relevant. I don't know. I've kind of waffled and said something not very well at all. But let's watch this second video here, which I've not watched yet. But R. Kelly fans argue with the victims. How disrespectful. But, I mean, I guess at the same time, if you do vehemently believe in someone's innocence, then, I guess it's justified to be vocal about it. But in any case, let's have a look.
All in the name of R. Kelly, you want to make fun of children. Right? You want to make fun of children? Threaten children? You've been online attacking all the
I don't know if that's arguing or just shouting, so I'm just going to ignore that. But certainly there is an aspect of, as I say, R. Kelly fans that are very angry about him being sentenced to 30 years. I'm not angry in the least. So I'm going to go back to the other article. I'm going to read through some more details, and I'll mention a trigger warning. It's going to go into some of the details of some of the crimes that he was ultimately found guilty of. R. Kelly maintains his innocence, and states that he's not calculating and cunning. Mob justice is in vogue, but this court must distinguish between boorish behavior and criminal behavior. That's a quote from R. Kelly's lawyer. During the trial, which centered on the allegations of 6 people, prosecutors said Kelly was a serial sexual predator who abused young women as well as underage girls and boys for more than 2 decades. Prosecutors alleged that he and his entourage led a criminal enterprise that recruited and groomed victims for sex, arranging for them to travel to concerts and events across the United States. R. Kelly was also accused of confining victims in hotel rooms or his recording studio, managing when they could eat, when they could use the bathroom, and forcing them to follow various rules, including demanding that they call him daddy. The defense lawyers for R. Kelly tried to portray his accusers as groupies who sought to exploit his fame and take advantage of the Me Too movement. He pleaded not guilty to all charges and did not take the stand in his own defense. Well, dude, you've been found guilty, and as far as I understand, your victims were children. So, you know, whether or not they're groupies, that doesn't give you the right to treat them how you did, which includes forceful sexual abuse of various kinds, as well as other types of degradation and humiliation, which we'll continue to have a look at. After his sentencing, R. Kelly is scheduled to stand trial in August in Chicago on federal child pornography and obstruction of justice charges. So he's got more charges to face. He's got another trial up and coming, at least one other trial. So as I say, we're going to move on to this second article here. We've just watched a couple of videos from this article, but it's just going to give us a little bit of extra info here and there, some tidbits of information. The judge handed down Kelly's sentence despite the defense lawyer's request for a sentence of 10 years or less. The defense lawyers wanted 10 years or less. Well, they didn't get what they want. He's also been ordered to pay a $100,000 fine. Not a huge amount. I presume he still has millions. Maybe he doesn't. Here's one of the victims. Here's another victim. I believe this lady said that she was victimized at the age of 14. And this one at the age of 17. So they've waited 30 years for justice. But thankfully, they've got it now. Okay, so the defense lawyers were saying that he shouldn't get any more than 10 years in prison. Why? Well, because he had a traumatic childhood, including severe, prolonged childhood sexual abuse, poverty, and violence. He also suffers from literacy deficiencies, and he was repeatedly defrauded and financially abused. So, boo-hoo. I mean, I shouldn't be too facetious. I do slip into that quite a bit. But to me, I don't buy that. Just because someone has been wronged doesn't mean that they should get a pass should they do wrong to others. And he certainly has done wrong to others. So he needs to face the consequences for his actions. It may be dreadfully sad what's happened to him, certainly as a child, if indeed what he says happens to be true. But come on, he's not the only sufferer of any of these things. Certainly not poverty. There's millions of children that face poverty. And regrettably, there's also a lot of children that face childhood sexual abuse as well as violence. Not everyone turns out to be a child sex predator. Okay, I'm going to read through this part here. According to testimony, R. Kelly gave several accusers herpes without disclosing that he had an STD. He also coerced a teenage boy to join him for sex with a naked girl who emerged from underneath a boxing ring in his garage. And he shot a video of one of his victims showing her smearing feces, shit, on her face as punishment for breaking the rules. The article also tells us about his marriage to Aaliyah. I believe that's how you pronounce her name, the singer. She was just 15 years of age at the time. and he was 27 at the time. So that was an illegal marriage, which he pushed through, and the accusations are there that Aaliyah was being taken advantage of. Gonna have a look at this third article just for this final bit here. R. Kelly. Oh no, hang on. No, we've seen that part. Okay, all right. So look, that's all the information that we have. I've gone through quite a bit of info there. Have I done a half decent job? If I've done a half decent job, please do like, comment, subscribe, share the video as you see fit. Gonna make a few more videos. I'm glad to see this guy get 30 years. He seems like a real scumbag to me. Rape, sexual abuse, I mean, humiliation, forcing a girl to wipe feces on herself. I mean, that's just horrendous. What kind of sick, depraved madman does that? Is this guy a narcissist? Is he an absolute narcissist? I don't know, but he's an absolute fucking psychopath, and I'm glad he's been jailed for a very long time. Gonna wrap things up here, guys. Take care.